In our hyper-connected digital age, technology promises universal access to information, services, and opportunities. Yet this promise remains unfulfilled for a staggering 16% of the world's population. Over 1.3 billion people living with disabilities. From the blind student navigating educational apps to the elderly stroke survivor struggling with banking websites, digital barriers create daily challenges most never consider. What many organizations fail to recognize is that accessibility isn't just ethical, it's economic. The disposable income of people with disabilities exceeds $8 trillion globally. In the EU alone, inaccessible design costs businesses Euro 142 billion annually in lost revenue. This is why legislation like the European Accessibility Act, taking full effect in June 2025, marks a turning point, requiring all digital products and services to meet strict accessibility standards. The journey toward digital inclusion began decades ago. The first screen readers emerged in the 1970s, while the groundbreaking Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, debuted in 1999. Today, despite 82% of countries having some accessibility laws, 96% of the world's top websites still fail basic accessibility checks. This gap between policy and practice highlights our collective failure to prioritize inclusive design. Accessibility standards form the invisible framework of digital inclusion. WCAG, now at version 2.2 with 3.0 in development, represents the distilled wisdom of thousands of experts and users worldwide. These guidelines rest on four foundational principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust content, together forming the core framework that transforms technical specifications into human experiences.
So early on, people figured out that we needed guidelines to figure out how to make the web accessible. So WCAG 1.0 was released in 1999 to kind of help address that. It was pretty simple. It was just 14 guidelines, and they had a priority 1, 2, or 3, which kind of roughly became A, AA, and AAA when 2.0 came out in 2008. And that's where we got the structure we know now, where we have the POUR principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, robust, with the success criteria and the guidelines underneath those four principles. The web moved along, new technology came out, people started buying smartphones left and right. They realized there were some things that didn't get addressed in 2.0. So we got 2.1, which came out in 2018, which added some more rules around mobile devices and also added some more rules for people with cognitive disabilities and low vision. Again, the web moved along, new technologies, and we got WCAG 2.2 pretty recently in October of 2023, which added even more guidelines for people with cognitive disabilities and also with motor impairments. So just addressing some things that got left out and addressing some new technologies and things as the web moved along.
Consider the humble alt text attribute. To developers, it's a simple HTML tag. To a blind user, it's the difference between understanding an image's significance or facing complete exclusion. Similarly, proper heading structure isn't just about aesthetics. It enables screen reader users to navigate content efficiently. These technical implementations have profound human consequences. The tangible impacts become clear in transformations like this government service portal. After implementing WCAG 2.1 standards, they saw a 200% increase in successful transactions from disabled citizens and a 40% reduction in support calls. This demonstrates how accessibility investments yield measurable returns while fulfilling moral obligations.
Yeah, so if we tend to think about people with disabilities represent all kinds of different limitations with how they can use the web. So one example would be someone who's totally blind. So they have a screen reader, have a tool on their machine that reads out loud to them pieces of the website and how it's formatted, but it has to be formatted correctly for them to do that. For example, you have to have the heading structures, the one and only H1, that's the page or post or product title, and then H2s and then nested, because people are scanning through the content using that. It has to have link text that's not ambiguous, right? So some of those things that help a person who can't see the content to still understand and perceive and move through the content, get the benefit of the content.
The touchscreen revolution created new barriers, even as it removed old ones. For the 60 million people with motor impairments, the assumption of standard physical ability in touch interfaces presents daily challenges. The difference between inclusion and exclusion often lies in millimeters, the spacing between buttons, the size of touch targets, the timing of interactions. Motor impairments manifest diversely: Parkinson's tremors, cerebral palsy spasticity, arthritis stiffness, each requiring different design considerations. Haptic feedback has emerged as a powerful tool, with advanced vibration patterns creating tactile interfaces for blind users. Yet only 12% of mainstream apps implement these features meaningfully. Visual design carries invisible assumptions about how people see. With 300 million colorblind users worldwide, 45 million legally blind individuals, and billions experiencing age-related vision changes, our color palettes and layout decisions have profound exclusionary potential. Financial apps using only red-green for market data, healthcare portals with low-contrast text, complex dashboards without text alternatives. These common design failures exclude millions daily. The solutions, semantic color systems, proper contrast ratios, responsive text sizing, are technically simple but require awareness and prioritization. As populations age, designing for changing vision becomes increasingly crucial. By 2050, 22% of the global population will be over 60. Their digital exclusion carries enormous social and economic costs, yet remains largely unaddressed in most design processes. Voice interfaces present particular challenges for the 70 million people who stutter.
You want him to do you so much you could do anything?
The 430 million with disabling hearing loss, and countless non-native language speakers. Most voice recognition systems fail these users spectacularly, cutting them off mid-sentence, misinterpreting commands, or offering no alternatives. Emerging solutions like Google's Project Relate show promise by learning individual speech patterns. Real-time captioning, sign language recognition, and multilingual support are all technically feasible, yet rarely implemented comprehensively.
Public relate through my speech services. It looked interesting and exciting. It was really high-tech. Relate is a support tool to help me communicate. I use the repeat feature to help people to understand me. So I say what I'm going to say, and I press the red button and it repeats it back. Are you ready for lunch?
Are you ready for lunch?
I'm always looking for more opportunities to use it.
The gap between possibility and practice remains vast. Immersive technologies risk creating new forms of exclusion. Most VR systems assume full-body mobility, while AR interfaces often rely on precise gestures difficult for many. The consequences extend beyond inconvenience. They represent lost opportunities in education, rehabilitation, and employment. Innovators are exploring alternatives like gaze control, brain-computer interfaces, and adaptive gesture recognition. These solutions must move from research labs to mainstream platforms to prevent spatial computing from inheriting old accessibility failures. The path forward requires fundamental mindset shifts. Accessibility can't remain an afterthought or compliance checkbox. It must become an integral part of design thinking from the earliest stages, what some call shift-left accessibility. The business case is clear. Accessible companies see 30% higher customer loyalty, 20% greater innovation, and 50% larger addressable markets. With the European Accessibility Act's implementation, non-compliance now carries penalties up to €250,000 plus reputational damage.
But in every country has their own penalties and enforcement schemes, right? So some of them are using some kind of an enforcement group, a committee, or an agency that already exists. Some of them are creating new ones, and then there are typically fines. So the fines range from 60,000 euros is really common. Some of them go as 100,000. I've seen somewhere that Luxembourg said $1 million as their fine. And then in Ireland, you can get up to 18 months of jail time. Not to get
True progress will come when we stop seeing accessibility as special accommodation and recognize it as fundamental to good design. In this future, technologies won't need accessible versions because accessibility will be woven into their very fabric, creating a digital world that truly works for all.